What is up, guys? Welcome into yet another edition of the Ben Garcia Show. Kind of a spin-off, Benstant reaction, Ben Garcia Show today. For those of you guys that don't know, as well as doing content on here, talking about the Cardinals, the Phoenix Suns, the Arizona Diamondbacks, when that kind of stuff comes, I will also be streaming. So for those of you that didn't see it yesterday, I did stream after the Arizona Cardinals game. I also streamed earlier this morning. I want to be able to give you guys content every single day on demand, basically have my morning coffee with you. So I'll be doing that every day from 6:30 a.m. to 7 o'clock a.m. Arizona time. So with that being said, let's jump into what we have today. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, The Ben Garcia Show. Also follow me on all social media platforms. You guys have been killing it. I'm so thankful for all the support I've gotten on my social media platforms over the past couple of days. So go ahead, down below in the description, you can click and find me on there, or you can just find me on any social media platform, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, whatever, YouTube, at Ben Garcia Show. You guys will be able to find me there. So thank you again. That's at Ben Garcia Show. The Arizona Cardinals defeat the San Francisco 49ers yesterday, 47-24, and all anyone wants to debate at this point, and we're going to have a very long Cardinals offseason to talk about. Kyler Murray's future, Drew Petzing's future, who for some reason, God knows what reason, is getting a head coaching interview with the Chicago Bears. By all means, Chicago Bears, he is all yours, and that would make sense because that would be a crazy hire for them. It'd be very on brand, but everyone is kind of deciding or questioning, was the season a success? And it's kind of hard to decipher, right? Because the Arizona Cardinals, when you just look at it, when you want to debate if this season was successful, you look at it, they're 8-8. But there's something about the narrative here that feels like it hasn't switched. So with that being said, let's hear what Kyler Murray had to say yesterday, courtesy of our friends at PHNX Cardinals. Their link is, or their logo is on there, but here's what Kyler had to say about kind of changing the narrative around this Cardinals team.
For sure. I'm going into year 7, this season, which is insane. But still young. But like been in the playoffs once. I feel like no, that's not what I'm used to. It's not. I mean, I'm getting used to it, but like I'm trying to change that narrative, trying to change that, change the culture around this place. And I think that's I believe in what we're doing. I believe that's where we're headed.
So my point being in this, when you hear Kyler kind of talk about changing the narrative, getting used to not being in the playoffs and wanting to be there, and that he, for most of his life in his football career, isn't used to missing the playoffs or missing big games. The only way you're going to change the narrative around here in these parts of Arizona that has been a lackluster fan experience for Arizona sports fans over the last few decades or so is by winning. And this team simply has not done enough of that, winning over the past, like I mentioned before, 25 years, 30 years. Think about this. And it's why I hold this team to such a high standard, even though people will say you shouldn't do that or whatever. I hold this team to a very high standard. And I kind of think of it like this. Winning cures all, right? Cures everything. What do we do if we just look at this season and say, well, they went 8-9. Well, they doubled their win total. The most irritating thing that someone can say to me when I'm trying to hold this team accountable, so please don't use this argument, this idea of, well, if I told you at the beginning of the year that they were going to win 8 games, you would say that was a success. Yes, you're right. In a blank slate and in a perfect world, sure. I guess if you want to have a loser mentality, it was a successful season. If that's the only thing that we're judging this Arizona Cardinals season off of. Four more wins than they did last year. 8-9 last year, 4-13. But you want to know why that needs a caveat added to it? It's because when people say, if I would have told you at the beginning of the year they were going to win however many games, if I told you at the beginning of the year they were going to double their win total, they were going to win 8 games, you would have taken that. And I would have said yes. On face value, yes. But if you added to that, hey, they're going to win 8 games this year, but they're going to be 6-4 at week 10. They're going to be in control of their playoff destiny. They're going to be ahead of everyone in the division, and they will be perfectly on their way to the playoffs. But instead, they collapse. JG had multiple head coaching blunders. Drew Petzing did not do what he needed to do offensively. Kyler Murray threw bad interception after bad interception, and the defense crumbled in a Carolina Panthers game that you needed to win. That's the way I judge things. So yes, did the Cardinals take a step forward this year, just from the naked eye? 50,000-foot view. Yeah, I guess they did. But that's not good enough for me. Because they were 6-4 after week 10. They were in control of their playoff destiny. And what did this team do? Completely crap the bed. They nosedived. Defense went off a cliff in the Panthers game. JG had a couple of head coaching blunders. Drew Petzing, we're still not sure he's the guy or not. More on that later. And Kyler Murray. We look at Kyler and we say, I think we have our guy. You're definitely bringing him back next year because there's nothing else to bring back. But overall, at the end of the day, don't try to paint this picture that the season was a success because we doubled our win total. That is loser mentality. If you want to use that argument that, hey, they doubled their win total, they have 8 wins on the season, well, heck, this team just gets it. They're awesome. They're going to win the Super Bowl in a few years, and that's just what's going to happen. We're going to continue to dial up each and every week exactly that. We'll win a game or two. That's just not good enough for me. It's just not good enough for me. If you want to hold a team to a higher standard, like I think we all want to do, you can say this. They won more games this year, but there's still a lot of work to be done. They've got to rectify what they have in the second half of seasons. And this isn't just a Kyler Murray issue, but just please don't use the argument against me. It was a successful season because they doubled their win total and they won 8 games this year. If I told you they would have done that at the beginning of the season, you would have taken it. But you're also leaving out, if you would have told me at the beginning of the season that this team was going to crumble post-bye after being 6-4 and in control of their playoff destiny, where Kyler Murray throws a bunch of interceptions, where we don't know what the offense is because Drew Petzing is an incompetent buffoon at times. JG has some head coaching blunders. And in a Panthers game that you needed to win, Bryce Young carved up your defense. When you add all those caveats, then sure, I'm willing to have a conversation with you. But let's not hold our team to a low standard. This year, they took some steps, but in the grand scheme of it all, in my opinion, it doesn't feel like a successful season. It doesn't feel like an unsuccessful season. It just feels like an incomplete grade. Where I do give the Cardinals some props for winning more games this year than they did last year, but I just can't shake this awful feeling of post-bye, this team is what they are. And that is not a very good football team. And that's frustrating. So I'm optimistic. I'm excited for the future. You're keeping Kyler Murray around because there's no other better options. This team improved, but there still needs to be drastic improvements. So with that being said, another drastic improvement, or I guess maybe not so much, but the Arizona Cardinals had some miscues, with that being of one, Drew Petzing and Kyler Murray. And there is now a report out there by Bo Brock and Johnny Venerable, the fine folks over at PHNX Cardinals, really good guys, and hopefully one day I'll get them on the show here. But Drew Petzing is going to be back for the Arizona Cardinals. And, man, I got to be honest with you. It's a little disappointing. And it's a little disappointing because I had a lot more faith in Jonathan Gannon to be the mean guy that needs to pull the cord when it's time to pull the cord. And I know him and Petzing are buds. And from everyone I know, they all say Drew Petzing is one of the nicest guys, from in the media to players, whatever it is. One of the nicest guys. But this feels like a pick a side moment between Kyler Murray and Drew Petzing. You have the Kyler Murray fanboys over here who see yesterday and look at Kyler Murray's amazing game, which was 4 touchdowns, 240 yards, another 20-something yards rushing the football. And they look at that and they point to that as more reasoning for you to believe that Kyler Murray is the guy. Just so we can get it straight. Kyler Murray, 25 for 35 yesterday, 242 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interception, a passer rating of 128 with adding 22 yards rushing. Just so we can get this out there. You cannot use that as your argument for why Kyler needs to be the guy next year and is absolutely a without a doubt, a franchise quarterback for this team. You cannot use that argument. And you want to know why? Because we already know how good Kyler Murray is when the pressure isn't on, when the games don't matter, when things don't matter. I know Kyler Murray can beat up the 49ers when they're out of playoff contention and there's no chance of them getting in. The biggest argument for Kyler Murray has never been, can Kyler Murray be a good quarterback? He is fine. But the issue has always been is, can he show up in the biggest moments, in the biggest spots, and unequivocally, undeniably, indisputably, this team and this quarterback does not show up in the biggest moments. And that has to change. So you are bringing back Kyler Murray next year. There is no other better options. But next year is a playoff or bust year for Kyler. Next year is a figure it out post-bye or bust Kyler Murray. There is no more roller coaster ride that we can do for Kyler anymore. He just has to be better. So quit lollipopping stats and talking about how great he was in a game that didn't matter. Stop making guys like me the bad guy because we say we've seen this before. We need Kyler to show up in the biggest spots, in the biggest moments when the games matter. He hasn't done that yet, and next year is his last chance to do so. And it's only next year is his last chance to do so because there's no other better options. But you're potentially taking a quarterback in the draft, bringing in some potential upside with a guy. Who knows? Maybe it's a Jackson Dart. I've mentioned a Carson Beck before, if you can get those guys late. But I just don't think it is. I think it's disingenuous to point at yesterday and say Kyler Murray's your guy. We need to see it in the biggest moments. And to this point, we haven't. But more than just Kyler, it's Drew Petzing. Drew Petzing is coming back next year, and I already mentioned I'm kind of disappointed in that already. Because it kind of feels like the season is over next year before it's even begun. Because Drew Petzing, he's too conservative. He doesn't trust his quarterback. He doesn't open up the playbook, and it just feels like next year is going to be more of the same. Whereas you needed to break up with one, Kyler or Drew Petzing, and it doesn't look like they're going to break up with either. I like the way the players talk about Drew Petzing. It seems like they really like him. But locker room and on-field are two different products. And the fact that the Arizona Cardinals are bringing back Drew Petzing is a mistake. It's a mistake. I'm not sure him and Kyler Murray can coexist. He doesn't trust Kyler to throw the ball downfield. If James Conner goes out, the offense looks abysmal. And I think that that's a really bad move for the Arizona Cardinals. Drew Petzing should have been out the door. I'm very disappointed that Jonathan Gannon couldn't pull the cord on that. But it's not what's going to happen. It does already kind of feel like there's a dark cloud over the 2025 season, and we haven't even gotten that far because Drew Petzing's the OC. Because the last thing we want to do next year is set ourselves up for failure in week 6, week 7, week 8, when the Cardinals are 3-5 and the offense still isn't clicking. And then you're firing Drew Petzing, and then you're putting in someone else, and you're hoping that works out on the fly. It just feels like this was an opportunity for the Cardinals to make a move, and they decided against it, and that just stinks. Because it felt like it was very clear what the issue is. And maybe it's Kyler, maybe it's not. But you got to be honest. Even if you're You do not like Kyler Murray. You're an attacker of Kyler Murray. You're a critic of Kyler, just like how I was for the first 11 minutes of this segment. Drew Petzing's offense, it's lollipop, it's dink and dunk. It's not what wins in the NFL. And it's disappointing that he's going to be back next year for the 2025 season. And I've got to be honest, I'm not very optimistic that now he's going to open up the playbook. Now it's going to work out. So Drew Petzing back next year. The one thing you can hang your head on is, hey, continuity. And that's a big deal. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it does feel like a real Debbie Downer that we're going to see Drew Petzing call plays next year when this offense, Trey McBride, Marvin Harrison Jr., James Conner, Kyler Murray, Paris Johnson Jr., it felt like it was set up to succeed this year, and I thought they could be a top 5 offense, and it felt like at times they were a bottom 5 offense. And that falls squarely a little bit on, that falls on Kyler Murray as well. But Petzing never let Kyler Murray rip it downfield until it was too late. So disappointing, but cautiously optimistic about Drew Petzing coming back as the Arizona Cardinals offensive coordinator.